Do you think sex ed should be taught in school?
Yeah, we can't have inexperienced teenagers.
Not going to be told not to have sex.
What's up, guys? This is Natalie Carey with Red Liberty Media. We're here in Manhattan Beach to find out what people feel should be the appropriate age to teach children sex ed and LGBTQ topics in school. Let's get started. Do you think that sex ed should be taught in school?
Oh, that's a good question.
I guess I could have given you a little warning what this was going to be about.
I do think sex ed should be taught in school. However, I think that there's a certain age in which should be acquired first before having the type of sexual conversation as far as sex ed goes. But I think in general, it's a good idea.
Should sex ed be taught in school?
Somebody got to teach it somewhere sometime, yes.
Do you think sex ed should be taught in school?
Yeah, we can't have inexperienced teenagers.
Inexperienced?
Yeah, like they gotta know what's up. They gotta know what's,
What age would you say is the appropriate age to start teaching sex ed in school?
Probably like 12 and up, yeah. That's when like most kids start like entering into that age that they should like be understanding what their body's going through.
Okay, is that like 6th or 7th grade?
I learned when I was in 5th grade, and I felt like that was pretty appropriate. I didn't feel uncomfortable when I was learning about it in 5th grade, so.
What age would you say is that appropriate age?
To start the conversation for sex ed, I'd probably say around like 6th, 7th grade.
6th or 7th grade.
That's a good age.
Yes,
That's definitely age. It's like adolescence, and like
Yeah.
you kind of, like,
So you
your
agree?
hormones and your development going into like high school and stuff. So I think it's a perfect time to narrow that down early. Yeah.
At what age would you say that we should start teaching sex ed in school?
I would say once like kids are, I guess, thinking about it or something. I don't know.
What age do you think kids are thinking about it?
I think like puberty.
Okay.
Like kind of like puberty. Yeah.
So like junior high or something?
Yeah.
Most like 12-year-old girls and boys are trying to understand who they are into the world, and they're all these emotions. They don't know why they feel in the way they feel. So
I feel a little tingle, I don't know why.
So,
Shit.
but having the resources at your school to be able to help you get through those emotions and feelings is always a great thing.
What age do you think that should be discussed?
I don't know that kindergartners need to have questions beyond their abilities, but puberty comes on, 7th, 8th grade, 12, 13, ease into it, get real, because it's real.
Do you think that LGBTQ topics should be taught in school, and if so, at what age?
When you say LGBTQ topics, do you mean in relation to sex ed or just mean in general?
I guess just in general. Like, do you think that it should be its own topic? Do you think if it's taught, it should be taught when sex ed is taught? Do you think it should be taught even at all?
I think within...
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. You're fine.
I think within sex ed, all things pertaining to sexual encounters should be covered within that. So I feel like everything that goes under the umbrella of sexual interactions and encounters should be discussed then. But I don't know. I haven't really thought too deeply about it as far as if LGBTQ matters should be discussed separately as its own thing or a part of. That's a hard one. I'm not too sure.
What about LGBTQ issues? What age do you guys think those should be taught in school, and if so, what age?
I think that it should be taught at the same time that like sex ed is taught, because I think it's as much relevant as like heterosexual issues are like in everyday life, and that like kids should be taught that like whatever they're going through is equally as like relevant as everyone else is going through, and like I think that it should be taught as if it's like equally as like relevant in today's society.
Do you think kids should be taught LGBTQ topics in school?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
At what age would you say?
Whenever.
Whenever?
Whenever.
So, kindergarten?
Yeah, what does it matter?
Well, okay, so if you wouldn't learn about sex ed until puberty, why would you learn about sexual preferences before puberty?
Oh, I see. So sexual preferences, that you mean? So sexual preference is probably the same, probably grouped around the same thing then.
So you think that when kids learn sex ed, that's when those kind of topics should be discussed?
If it doesn't make sense in kindergarten, then yeah.
Do you think it makes sense in kindergarten?
No, now that you phrase it that way.
Do you think LGBTQ topics should be taught in school?
I think there's too many letters there. I can't keep up with them. How the kid's going to keep up with that? But I got it. And I think if kids are the kind of kids that need that, maybe not all the kids need that, especially at the younger ages. If it looks like they need that kind of counseling, talk to their parents. Get counseling. Take them and have that discussion somewhere with professionals and involve their parents in that too.
Let's say if I was somebody that grew up in a with reference point of networks and people whose world is just LGBT, but like you know how every group, every single type of person, we know that there's people who are like super pro this, and then there's people who are anti this. Let's say if somebody was super pro LGBTQ to where I won't even say it's pro LGBTQ at the point of where they're putting down other things. I think people who were to, let's say, be in that case to be somebody who's teaching, right? I don't think that type of person would be just genuinely be able to speak on the biological aspect, right? Because then from their reference point in their life, all they focus on is not even pro this, but anti those other things. And so I think that if we were to have people who are educated on these things, whether that's your reality or not of I'm a gay man or I'm not a gay man, whether that's your reality or not, these are the biological facts of these things, and the rest of the things I'm going to leave to you to figure out. But I think it is important to be able to have those conversations and to teach those things to kids, because when you walk outside, that's the reality of the world, you know? You're going to walk outside, you're going to see or come across a gay man or a lesbian one or bisexual people or someone who identifies as they and them, you know? And those are things that kids are going to have questions about, and I think those are important things to learn. And so being able to have someone who's educated on those things, that's not forcing their opinions on you, but putting you on to the things that you will see in the reality that is the world is important.
Okay, so even though you wouldn't necessarily talk about sexual preferences in sex ed,
I think you should talk about sexual preferences in sex ed.
Well, yeah, I mean, also, like, in like, a lot of today's, like, you know what I mean? In, like, movies and stuff, they, like, talk about, like, little kids being like, oh, this is, like a kid's boyfriend or a kid's girlfriend or something. Like, I feel like if you're introducing it that early, there's no reason that you shouldn't also introduce, like, homosexual, like, preferences that early as well. Like, there's no reason for it. If you're introducing, like, heterosexual preferences that early, there's no reason that you shouldn't also introduce homosexual preferences that early as well.
I think just when you bring it up, make sure you're being, like, inclusive. I think that's the biggest part.
Yeah. Gotcha. So it's not so much that you think kids should be talking about sexual preferences in general. Yeah. It's just if you're going to be talking about sex.
Yeah, it's however your feeling is okay, and there's no reason to think that it's not.
What if the curriculum is flawed?
Oh, if the curriculum is flawed, that's a good one. Which does happen, you know. I don't know what I would do in that situation or how I would necessarily solve that, but I do know that if I did have children, and I would like to say that if I did have children and when I do have kids, that I would be able to look over the things that they're learning in class and go over things with them, because, you know, again, U.S. history. You learn a lot more about U.S. history when you leave the U.S. There's a lot of things we don't find out here that are very much true in other countries. And so I know I would play that active role within my children's lives. And so I would hope that all of the parents, all of the people who have children would want to take that active role to make sure that their kids are as well educated to the best of their ability by doing things like that, by reviewing the things that the kids are learning.
Well, that wraps up our conversations. I'm going to go get warm because it is freezing out. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Red Liberty Media's channel for more content. Have a good one.
Matt from the East on all platforms. Follow your boy.